Today's idea is about calendar measures. If you've loaded your data into Qlik Sense, it will pick up dates and automatically generate this calendar here. And what's important about this calendar is that when you start working with your actual calculations, for example sales amount, you're able to come down here and create something called calendar measures. And these are fairly sophisticated. They allow you to create over any aggregation type field and any date you have, and you can create things like this sales amount year to date, current year and last year, etc. Of course, you can perform any sort of aggregation, and you can switch from yearly to monthly, for example, or you can go to weekly. So it's a very flexible system, and it gets you some sophisticated solutions fast. The result of creating the calendar measures can be seen here in the master items. You'll see that I've created some calendar measures here, this year's sales and last year's sales. Now I've made them dynamic, so what I've done is I've given them a title, and that title obviously is representing the year that it's actually showing. So I'm making use of some variables which I'll show you at the bottom down here. The result of this, of course, is that you can do any sort of year-on-year type comparison. Here I have a table, sales by sales rep. It has a fairly decent subtitle in it so that the user is able to understand exactly what period they're comparing. And then, of course, we have the last year June compared to this year's June, the variance percentage, and then the full year versus what we have 2020, and then the variance and the variance percentage. So pretty standard type of analysis. What's important about this is that we've made use of two fields, the years ago field in the calendar and the relative month number field in the calendar. And what we've done with that is we've allowed the user now to make selections on years, and this will change these variables, and those variables are used inside the calculation. So here we're looking at the sales amount for the actual current. That's this particular field over here. So what that means, of course, is if I make a selection of 2019 and 2018, these variables change to 1 and 2, so years ago, 1 year ago versus 2 years ago. And of course, all of these numbers change now. So now I'm comparing January to December versus January to December. And of course, the titles are changing, so it's pretty reflective in terms of what we're looking at. So that's really useful. And of course, what's critically important is to be able to compare unusual years. So for example, 2019 maybe was not very standard for us. So what I want to do is I want to look at 2020 versus 2018, and it works just as well. January to December versus January to June. And of course, when you look at something like that, you want to do a reasonable comparison. So maybe we want to look at just the months January to June. And of course, I can just come down here and make the selection here to do that. And that's not a problem. June, of course, is not completely finished. So maybe I want to deselect that one and have my analysis looking like that. But effectively, this is very flexible and obviously something that needs to be demoed in every app that we use. And in addition to this, of course, you can also use these fields for selections. For example, year to date. If I click on year to date, it can select the current years as well as the year to date field. As you can see, there is set to 1 by the auto calendar, and that will make the selections for you. So this app is available, of course, for working with and looking at, but this is the reason that I would use the modern calendaring from Qlik as well as the calendar measures that Qlik have designed.